The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
And I get the feeling you've been cheated.
It is Wednesday, November 29th, 2023. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Kate Aronoff, staff writer, The New Republic focusing on climate change and the rather oily nature of COP28. Also on the program today, day 6 of the Israel-Hamas truce as negotiators continue, or I should say as negotiations continue for further prisoner swaps. Saudi Arabia reportedly offers Iran investment for some proxy pullback. Meanwhile, increased aid to Gaza ramping up. Germany now sending aid. U.S. sending military aircraft to Egypt with aid. And a growing number of Democratic senators are quietly lobbying for conditioning Israel aid. House lawmakers across both parties looking to expel George Santos this week. He announces he will not resign. Koch brothers network, or I should say Koch network, endorses Nikki Haley. Nevertheless, she will not be president. Comer rejects Hunter Biden's offer to publicly testify. Iowa sued over its book banning and don't say gay law. And student loan debt forgiveness emails will be sent out to 800,000 people this week from the Biden administration. As Biden begins to, at the least, message populism. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome to the program, folks. Someone just IM'd me saying that YouTube started playing yesterday's live show instead of today's. I don't know if that's true.
I'm not seeing that as a common complaint.
All right. Well, there it is. Like the stream and subscribe, though, they add. So maybe that's what that was. Just a way to get me to say that. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Emma not here today. So I will say her trademark, it's Hump Day. I also just warn you, it is also the day after I celebrated my birthday. And I'm not going to lie, Saul and I watched an episode of The Flash, so I'm feeling a little bit groggy. It was not exactly the most...
You did finish a bottle of wild turkey from...
I drank it alone. Yeah, he watched me as we were watching The Flash. Just drink the whole bottle. You know, I told him this is what you get to look forward to. He keeps calling me Grandpa. That's no fun. Let's get right into this. Hunter Biden yesterday offered to testify publicly to James Comer's House Oversight Committee. And it's quite obvious why, and this, we should say, this comes after this committee had subpoenaed Hunter Biden and presumably wants him to testify behind closed doors first, and then anything can happen after that. Now, we know what happened with Hunter Biden's associate. What was that guy's name? In his business dealings. He went behind closed doors. They did the...
Devin Archer.
Devin Archer. they did the interview of Devin Archer, and he basically said, like, yeah, no, but Joe Biden had no involvement whatsoever. There was one time where Hunter Biden was in a meeting with some of our business associates and called up Joe Biden, put him on speaker, and talked about the weather just to prove that he was actually not estranged from his dad, and then hung up the phone, and that was it. But he was no way ever involved in everything we did. And of course, Comer and the other Republicans released all the part about, like, Hunter Biden called his dad during a business meeting. You know, I mean, it's quite obvious, and people can make their assessments about how much this implicates Joe Biden as president, but that Hunter Biden is an F up and used his dad's name to make all his money. Or 98% of, I have no idea. But I think that's a fair critique of not just of Biden, but of, frankly, of our society in many respects. But Biden's basically, Hunter Biden's like, let's testify in public. And the Republicans immediately have to shut that down. And then they have to figure out how they're going to explain that they don't want Biden to testify in public first. And who better to make that explanation on Fox News than someone who is a reporter who sits on the sidelines of NFL games?
Yeah, that would be interesting. But I agree that I prefer hearings to be done behind closed doors, because I think that they actually get to the heart of the matter, and they get some truth, and they can ask questions without
pause it for 1 second. Yeah, this is the fascinating thing. Now, I just want to be clear on who's speaking here. This is Michelle Tafoya, and like I say, she is a NFL Fox NFL reporter.
I don't even think she does NFL anymore. I think she's now a full-time political commentator. Okay. She was a sideline reporter.
All right, so fair enough.
Transition.
But I'm trying to figure out at what time she had the insight as to what was happening in congressional hearings that were happening behind closed doors.
She has ESP, and it used to be really usful in her capacity as a sports reporter because she could see inside locker rooms. But now she's hearings.
Into hearings. Like, I would like to sit down with her for, I don't know, 5 minutes and just go, like, tell me some of the investigations that happened behind closed doors where you think more information was given out and what that information might be.
How you know that?
Yes, exactly. Like, I mean, but let's just go back a little bit, because it's funny to hear her say that and no one around the room go like, hey, wait, what?
He says it with an authoritative voice.
I think secret things really get to the matter more. Do you know what I'm saying? And everybody's just like, uh-huh.
Yeah, that would be interesting. But I agree that I prefer hearings to be done behind closed doors, because I think that they actually get to the heart of the matter, and they get some truth, and they can ask questions without preening for the camera, without all the grandstanding. That is my preference. And for Abby Lowell, his attorney, to say, well, you all use that to misinform and to distort the facts. Well, you know what? You can do that too, Abby. After he comes out of his closed door session, you feel free to knock yourself out, and you can distort too.
So I guess the answer is, what we really need to do is have an orgy of distorted facts, and that will get to the heart of the matter more.
And leaks and stuff like that, yeah.
I mean, let's be clear here, right? Like, there have been investigations about this. There are ongoing investigations. I think there's a special counsel, or independent counsel right now, right? Who is a special prosecutor, I should say.
Weiss, yeah, has been promoted.
Who is investigating this, presumably behind closed doors. I mean, that's the way you're supposed to do it. These are hearings, and they want the American public to know, and that she is literally advocating for more misinformation about it from both sides.
I like the Star Chamber. I think you get
exactly. All right, go back a little bit.
To misinform and to distort the facts. Well, you know what? You can do that too, Abby. After he comes out of his closed door session, you feel free to knock yourself out, and you can distort too. I mean, it's a silly argument. And Comer has said, fine, sit before us publicly, a public hearing. We'll do that later. We want the closed door one first. And I think that's totally appropriate. Hunter Biden would love nothing more than to sit, have cameras pointed at him, and try to generate the narrative that he wants to form. And I think it's proper and right that you're right. He gets to do another one, maybe on 60 Minutes or wherever he wants to go.
What's amazing about this is like she's basically saying, despite the fact that the Republicans have him dead to rights, there's no way they can have him dead to rights. Like, think about how many people want to go up into an hostile environment. And let's honestly, like, I don't know that if Hunter Biden was on fire, I would necessarily cross the street. You know, that whole thing. I don't care about Hunter Biden. But I mean, think about like the idea that somebody wants to go on in congressional hearings to be grilled by the other party where they think that he is basically their one ticket to the White House.
Yeah. And they act like he's like the Joker. Like, we can't let the world hear what he has to say or he's going to
hypnotize everybody. I got to think that like Joe Biden's like, phew, I don't want that guy testifying in public. I mean, this is so transparent that even Steve Bannon would be embarrassed by this. In fact, here's Steve Bannon.
Need to get a sense of urgency, and quite frankly, you just got to get tougher. Hunter Biden's calling the bluff. This is how, you know, Comer and Jordan and all these guys. He's calling their bluff and said, "Hey, I'll come. Ask me any question. Let's just go and do it on national TV." They're saying, "No, we got to do it behind closed door." Hey, he called you. They don't fear you. They don't fear you guys. They think you're a bunch of wimps. They're calling. These people play for keeps. These people play smash mouth. That's why their way kind of rules and ours doesn't. We're not going to take, look, the impeachment, and now they called you out. You got Hunter Biden saying, and Abby Lowe, look, these are tough hombres. Abby Lowe says, yeah, you're going to give us a deposition or get that. How about this? How do we do on national TV? He'll answer any question. And you got these guys, hey, if you're going to go after a guy, go after him. Let's roll. We got the goods. We can impeach Biden. Let's go. Let's start with Hunter. Let's put him on national TV for a week. Let's just go do it. It's calling your bluff. You got to man up there. You got to get tougher. It's not good enough. I hate to say it's just not good enough.
You know, what's fascinating about this is that he's so close to what is actually going on.
They're calling the bluff they're bluffing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's when someone says like, yeah, oh, you just put more money into the ante, I'm going to call your bluff. The reason why they're folding is not because they're just not brave. It's that they know they don't have the cards. And they don't want to put good money after bad.
Because once you put them down on the table, then people have to assess it.
Right. Like, which is more likely explanation? When Bannon admits they've called their bluff, that maybe Comer and Johnson and Jordan are just like sissy boys? Or is it that we really don't have anything on him and it's not going to go well?
That's a nice thing for Bannon, though, is he can continue to bluff, because I don't know what he thinks in his mind, but
totally
he can just keep bluffing.
Well, he also could just make up stuff. Yeah. I mean, because Bannon just wants Trump in office. He doesn't think that the Congress is going to get anywhere anyways. He realizes it. In a moment, we're going to be talking to Kate Aronoff, staff writer at the New Republic, focusing on climate change, of course, about the oil-soaked COP28. It's pretty impressive, I have to say. First, word from our sponsor. All products that I have used within the past 24 hours today. 80% of men apparently will experience the hair thinning in their lifetime. I thought it was going to be more than that, to be honest with you. It's normal. It doesn't have to be your fate. And you can get ahead of thinning with Nutrafol. Nutrafol approached us a couple of years ago as a sponsor. And I tried to get Michael to use the product, and he was not interested in it. I don't know what was going on. He took it but a couple of years ago, I still had some bottles left because they sent some bottles to try out. And I realized I had a friend who had who knew somebody who had taken it. Emma knew somebody, and so I started taking it because I'm getting up there in age. I'm getting a little thin in certain areas, it's going back. And the reason why I took it is because there's no downside. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement. It's clinically shown to improve your hair growth, visible thickness, and visible scalp coverage. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements use physician-formulated, natural, science-backed ingredients. It's drug-free. It's a patented technology, provides consistent, reliable results without compromising your sexual health and without other side effects. Go to Nutrafol.com/men, take their hair health wellness quiz, identify the causes of your thinning hair, and Nutrafol will give you a personalized plan for better hair health through whole body wellness. Nutrafol supports healthy hair growth from within by targeting the root causes of thinning hair, such as stress, hormones, environment, nutrition, lifestyle, metabolism. I think I check off all of those are problematic for me. And it works. In a clinical study, 84% of men showed improvement in their hair after 6 months of taking Nutrafol's men's hair growth supplements. And in 100% of my study, it has worked. I was thinning much more on this side. And now it just seems like it's getting thicker again. Take the first step to visibly thicker, healthier hair. For limited time, Nutrafol offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com/men, enter the promo code TMR. Find out why over 4,000 healthcare professionals recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com/men, spelled Nutrafol.com/men, enter the promo code TMR. That's Nutrafol.com/men, promo code TMR. And we'll put a link, obviously, in the podcast and YouTube descriptions. This episode of the Majority Report also brought to you by Manakura Honey. It's a great time for gifts, obviously. Holidays coming up. Manakura Honey is a great gift to give. It is, first of all, it's the best tasting honey you'll have ever tried. It doesn't taste like honey. It's like honey, but different. I don't know how to full on go talk about this. It's a rare super honey, 100% natural, has some unique properties that honey, which is already good for you, doesn't have. Manakura makes Manuka honey. It is a single origin honey. It comes from New Zealand. The bees feed on the nectar of the Manuka tea tree. Makes honey that is it has the texture of caramel and the flavor of honey, but it's more, I don't know, rich and subtle. I don't know how to really, it's more complex and it's much more creamy than honey. It's on a completely different level of thing. And you can use it like you use any other honey. When I had COVID, I was hitting this hard with tea and just hot water and lemon for my throat. It is also rich in antioxidants and prebiotics. It is 100 times more of antioxidants and prebiotics than regular honey. On top of that, it contains an antibacterial compound called MGO that can be found exclusively in Manuka honey. And they actually have different honeys with different concentrations of that MGO. Bottom line, these nutrients are really help you support your immune and digestive health. And on top of it, it's incredibly delicious. It's great on oatmeal or yogurt or however you use honey. I've been putting it in, I've been cutting up when bananas go soft, cutting them up, put them in the freezer and put them in the blender, a little bit of honey, and then put them back in the freezer and banana ice cream. Yep. Anyways, I don't know why I even brought that up. But this 850 plus honey, MGO honey, which is the kind that I've gotten, although I've also got the sticks. Like I say, you can use this in any different ways. It's delicious. If you head to manacora.com/majority, you can get $25 off their starter kit, which comes with this MGO 850 plus Manuka honey and a free travel pack of honey sticks. You also get a free wooden spoon and a free guidebook. It's a perfect gift for a loved one this holiday season. Honestly, this would make a great gift and a great Hanukkah gift. They've got jars, they've got squeeze bottles, but I'll tell you the pack of the travel honey sticks, which is compostable, great for your kids' lunch. Also great if you just want to go out and have a little bit of a snack as you're going around with your backpack, whatever it is, especially this time of year. This is, that's manukora.com/majority, manacora.com/majority to get your $25 off the starter kit. It's the ultimate honey. Indulge and try some honey with superpowers from Manacora. And lastly, another product I use on a regular basis, final sponsor of the day, Henson Shaving. It's a family-owned aerospace manufacturer that has made parts for the International Space Station and Mars rover. Now they're bringing their precision engineering to your razor. For a long time, we had a subscription service that we was sponsoring. I grew a beard. I'm like, I don't want to waste. It doesn't make any sense. But still, there are places where I got to shave. Here and here, sometimes on my neck. This is the best shaver I've ever had. It turns out like the discomfort you get from shaving, not a function of the blade. People apparently can make blades pretty easily. It is the distance between the blade and the razor. And these guys, with their, computer assistant, I can't even remember what it is, machines, they make metal razors that extend just 0.0013 inches, like the less of a thickness of a human hair from the razor. So a secure and stable vibration-free shave. This razor also has built-in channels to evacuate the hair and the shaving cream. You don't have to bang it on your sink. And the beauty about Henson Shavers, this is a company from Canada, which is the only reason why I can explain. They seem to want to be the best razor, but not the best razor business. So in other words, you buy this once, and then for the rest of your life, it will cost you $3 to $5 to use it and to buy new razors, because it uses the sort of non-proprietary, standard dual edge blades. And right now, if you go, it's $3 to $5 a year, but right now, if you go, they're giving my audience a 2-year supply of blades for free. You go to hensonshaving.com/majority. That's HENSON shaving.com/majority. Add a razor, and then make sure you add 100 pack of blades to your cart. You got to add that yourself. And then enter the code majority and you'll get the blades for free. The link is in the description. This is also a great gift for Christmas or the holidays. Check it out. All the links in the YouTube and podcast description. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Kate Aronoff, staff writer at the New Republic. We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. Emma Vigeland off today. I want to welcome back to the program Kate Aronoff, staff writer at the New Republic, focuses on climate change. And Kate, thanks for joining us. I've been, talking about the cops, I guess, for, 15 years about, and they seem to be going in an odd direction. Or maybe, I don't know. Maybe, well, they're going in an odd direction. I guess maybe the question is, what's that a function of? Welcome to the program. Tell us what we're at COP28 now. What is that?
So COP refers to Conference of Parties. So that is parties or countries which have signed on to the United Nations Framework Conventions on Climate Change. And so since 1995, those parties have hosted a COP. And so this is the 28th COP. So they've been going on for almost 30 years. And they are where countries come together and ostensibly figure out ways to deal with the climate crisis. And so there are different sort of pieces within that. There's the Kyoto Protocol, which the US is no longer a part of. The main thing that you've probably heard about and listeners have probably heard about is the Paris Agreement, which was signed at COP21 in 2015. And the US is a part of and is, as of now, the sort of main agreement that is used to figure out how to get emissions down to the goal of, quote unquote, well below 2 degrees Celsius.
Who decides where these are going to be held and how relevant is that? Right. I mean, I'm just thinking the Olympics, there's there's sometimes it's tied into the locations that are trying to do development. There's problems with that, but put that aside. Well, I'm curious as to how they decide where it's going and what the point of it is, because this one's in Dubai.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so each year it shifts between different regions. And so this year, regions in the Middle East, I believe, I'm forgetting the exact designation, but countries within those regions will put in a bid, which is what the UAE did to host the games.
Right. Sorry.
The UNFCCC is, we might say, a bit less corrupt than the IOC, which is
arguably. Right.
But the UAE put in a bid and they won. Last year, the talks were in Egypt, which, of course, as many people reported on last year, has a pretty atrocious human rights record. This is not the first time that COP has been hosted by a major fossil fuel producing country. So in 2018, it was hosted by Poland, and part of the talks is that there's all these sort of national pavilions and this big sort of conference-like space. And Poland's pavilion, when it was the host, was made of coal, and it was held in a historically coal-producing city, Katowice. And so this kind of thing happens, right? So countries will put in these bids strategically, and as we'll probably talk about a bit more, it seems that the UAE's bid to do this was very strategic, in that the president of this COP is also the CEO of the state-owned oil producer for the UAE, ADNOC. And recent reporting this week has shown that that they have reportedly been using, they deny this, but have reportedly been using the sort of standard order meetings that COP presidents have with different countries to secure financing deals, to secure business deals for ADNOC, for Masdar, the state-owned renewable energy producer that he also heads. He has a lot of jobs. And so there is a business calculation. I would argue for most countries, there is a sort of economic calculation behind hosting these things.
Right.
Both for either the state-owned enterprises, for sort of economic interests, for global visibility reasons, and just it brings sort of business to two different cities. There's a lot of people coming in. There's 70,000 people coming to this COP, so there's always an economic calculation. I think that is more apparent this year than it has been maybe in any other COP.
But I mean, I can understand the concept of we want to bid for this because we are we're developing a nascent renewable energy industry, or because if we can we're going to integrate creating economic development in this city along the lines of something that is like, with some type of green energy initiative. But the idea of holding this in Dubai with the CEO of their national oil company in charge of like organizing this whole thing, it sounds like a bad comedy. I mean, honestly, it's like, what happens if we put an oil executive in charge of a climate change? And then all of a sudden there's like some music and it's the craziest summer ever type of thing. Like this is, I don't understand. Like how did not it occur to anybody at the UN, or is this basically just sort of I mean, I get the sense from the reporting, your reporting, and I've read the BBC's report on this. I mean, there's a lot of people reporting on all the different meetings that there is a sort of like, there's a capitulation here. Like it's going to cost us as a world to transition. It's just like the way that we're paying for it seems also to be problematic.
Yeah, I think it's important just to put the UAE in the context of how these talks tend to operate. And so there's been some other reports in recent weeks pointing out just how many fossil fuel representatives have been present at these talks, basically since the beginning. So since 2003, over the last 20 years, representatives from 5 of the biggest oil producers, Chevron, Exxon, Total, Shell, BP, have been given 267 passes to attend the talks. And if you include fossil fuel industry aligned trade associations, that number jumps to over 7,000, right? And so these talks have always been sort of seeping with fossil fuel interest. There are, deals being made along the margins by governments, by businesses. That has long been the case. I think it's not so strange to imagine the UAE hosting this if you consider what governments like the United States, even the European Union, have been saying for a long time, which is that we want oil and gas producers to be part of the solution, right? That has been the sort of standard order line for rich country governments and for many non-rich country governments too, for, about as long as these talks have been going on. I mean, the United States itself is, of course, a major oil producer. We're producing more crude oil than we have at any point in our history right now. And so to say that we, welcome drillers to be at the table and figure out a solution has been the sort of business standard line for a very long time. And so if that's the case, then there's really no contradiction between allowing the UAE to host a climate conference, allowing the head of ADNOC to host a climate conference, and that line. And immediately after this was announced, the COP28 presidency going to Al Jaber, the climate justice community was outraged, for very obvious reasons that you just laid out, which is that he runs a fossil fuel company and has an obvious interest in not phasing out fossil fuels, which will be the sort of conversation at these talks, is this distinction between fossil fuel phase out and phase down, which, is classic sort of UN minutia stuff. But that, is just how these operates. And it's been until very recently a real minority voice within those talks to say we actually need to get rid of fossil fuels, rather than using these sort of weasel words to say, well, we can suck up these emissions at some point in the not too distant future. We'll, phase them down at some point. And, we have seen just study after study after study this year and for the last several years showing both that, the problem with fossil fuels is very obvious, that governments are on track to produce double the amount of fossil fuels and is consistent with keeping warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius, producing 69% more than is consistent with keeping warming below 2 degrees Celsius. You can rattle off the dozens of these sorts of studies, but they have just placed more and more faith, as the UAE is doing, as the United States is doing, notably as Saudi Arabia is doing, into these solutions like carbon capture and storage that might have some marginal use, but are fully incapable of doing the sort of superhuman tasks that fossil fuel producing governments say they will be able to do in short order.
I mean, I can understand the concept of like you want them at the table because you want to deal, you want to deal with their resistance to this, right? I mean, you're fundamentally assaulting their business plan and trying to make their ability to get investment less attractive than the ability of clean energy to get investment. I mean, that's basically the broad strokes, the sort of, to the extent, when we talk at a market level, which if it was up to me, we wouldn't be doing it that way. We would just nationalize all these things and whatnot. But putting that aside, this is the world that we're dealing with. It just seems like you can go too far with that calculation by handing over the sort of the agenda to someone who's obviously like, we've got all this money invested in this apparatus. The UAE is going out there and they're hedging their bets but this is like basically going to, RJ Reynolds, I guess, back when they were making cigarettes. I don't know what name they're doing it now under Altria or whatever it is. And saying, hey guys, what do you think about investing in chewing gum instead of cigarettes? And them going, well, we'll cover our bets there too. But if they're in the room negotiating these things, they're going to exhaust every penny they can get out of their investments that are existing. And they're just going to mitigate whatever their number one agenda is. We're going to mitigate the losses, or I should say, the less than projected profits that we anticipate going forward. And then we'll give the money. And that dynamic seems to be really problematic.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up tobacco too, because notably the World Health Organization has a conflict of interest policy, right? So that tobacco producers cannot be in the room when they are debating lung cancer. The UNFCCC does not have a conflict of interest policy, and it's only this year that there have been new transparency measures introduced where employees of fossil fuel companies actually have to say they work for a fossil fuel company rather than that they're the guest of some nonprofit that is coming to the talks as an observer. And so that, creates these very obvious, as you said, conflicts of interest. And I would say, I am like probably a lot of people skeptical about how maximally useful the UNFCCC can be. I think we've had, nearly 30 years of evidence showing that the space really has its limitations. There's very little money involved. There's very little enforcement power to, make good on any of these promises. But, the same companies, the same lobbyists who are going around in national governments at the state level where things can actually be enforced are the ones who are coming to these talks, right? And so sort of at every level of the process, it is being polluted by fossil fuel interests. And I think more sort of meaningfully actually at the national level, particularly in a place like the US, where it's just sort of fossil fuel interests are, kind of ubiquitous across the political system.
From an activist standpoint, are they, is there a point where the cops become just unilaterally, or I should say 100% unhelpful? I mean, that they end up just being a greenwash, they just function as greenwashing, and there's no upside to it from an actual activist standpoint. Because it just seems like that these things are basically coming in to sort of, basically say we're going to do a transition, but it's not going to be until we literally squeeze every drop of oil out of this rock that we're on. And then we'll do the transition because it'll be financially viable for us as an oil company. There's no other entity in the world that would have a less buggered notion of how to make that transition, it seems to me.
Yeah, I mean, every year I feel like when I report on cops, somebody or many people will say to me, this is the last year I'm done. It's so useless. And, I think it's necessary but not sufficient, right? And that there are very few venues for climate activists from around the world to come together to be in front of world leaders. The Paris Agreement itself is arguably a really important document, right? That took a very long time to come up with, does provide the sort of outlines of this framework, a goal to hold world leaders to. I think there are a lot of uses to it, but ultimately, as you will hear people say over the next 2 weeks as these talks proceed, real power doesn't really lie in the UNFCCC, right? Real power is held within places where there's capital, right? The World Bank, within the IMF, in national governments, wealthy countries like the US, like the UAE, like Saudi Arabia, even in China. Ultimately, if something really is going to happen, it will be a product of countries actually doing something, which is basically the structure of the Paris Agreement is that every country does its part. And so there are some uses to this process. I don't want to say that it's not, it's not useful. It is, one of the only sort of global institutions in which poorer countries from the global south sort of have a voice, have a legitimate sort of institutional voice. But this process really has its limits. And I think it's important not to sort of expect too much to come out of it in any given year.
All right. Well, fair enough. I appreciate your explaining. I mean, I've just been reading this stuff and just thinking this seems nuts to me.
It is. It doesn't get less nuts the more you read about it. So.
Well, I appreciate at least I feel a little more sane, and then of course a little bit more depressed about it. But Kate Aronoff, always a pleasure. Staff writer, New Republic. We will put a link to your piece on or the one the climate talks are crawling with fossil fuel honchos and flax at the our YouTube and podcast descriptions. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much.
All right, folks. Let's just let's go ahead into the fun half. It's a little bit early, but I mean, a little bit early.
Kind of right on time.
It's actually like where we were supposed to be. I don't think we've ever hit this mark in like 3 years. Folks, it's your support that makes this show possible. You can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you not only get the free half free of commercials, you get the fun half. And when you're in the fun half, you can IM the show. The app is free to everybody. But when you're a member and you're logged in, you can IM the show. And we take your IMs and we read them. And sometimes we respond to them. Also, justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tiered chocolate. No, not tiered chocolate. They stopped selling that a long time ago. I just got into the habit of saying it. It's fair trade coffee. And you can get the Majority Report blend there, which is legitimately a great blend. But they also have some other, they have dark, they have medium roasted. They're a great outfit. Co-op, all employee owned, really take care of their producers as well. That I think some are, they buy some from Africa and Central America, started by supporting, I think, farms in Chiapas decades ago. Justcoffee.coop. Bradley, ESVN.
Yes, we were back on Monday, ESPN. We broke down the Week 12 NFL action, and we will, after 2 weeks of no Thursday show because of Thanksgiving and Emma not being in the Thursday before, we will be back to give our picks of the week for Week 13 of NFL action. So youtube.com/ESPN show to catch up and check out some clips if you'd like of some of our other streams, and we will be back tomorrow at 4 p.m. to give our picks.
Matt, Left Reckoning.
Left Reckoning last night, we had Brian Meyer on of Telesur talking about he has a peer-reviewed journal article on Latin American perspectives on American involvement in the Lava Jato investigation that drove the left from power and put Lula in prison in Brazil. So we talked to him about that and getting that published in a scholarly journal. Patreon.com/Left Reckoning, where in the post game I did some LBJ tapes about the 6-Day War in 1967. Patreon.com/Left Reckoning.
All right, we will see you in the fun half. 646-257-3920. We will take your calls pretty quickly. Jingle Smells Production Assistant says Just Coffee does have hot cocoa. that it's so much better than Swiss Miss. It's wild. Highly recommended. Oh, I should also say, after we did the ad for Henson Shaving yesterday, I think, somebody wrote in, it's like, it's the best razor I've ever had. It makes me happy just because I like, I don't want to promote a product that people don't like. Yeah, no bum steers here. We are going to take a break. I just remembered John Benjamin made a song called The Bum Steer a while back. You can only imagine what that sounded like. And I'll also show you.
We played that on the show once.
I think we may have, yeah. I will also show you the birthday card that he sent me.
I think it says, I'm giving the bum steer.
Exactly. You do remember that.
In the rear deer, I think was
the exactly. See you in the fun half.
You are in for it.
All right, folks. 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you could imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just wanna degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it to my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Snowflake says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
Oh no, Sam Seder! What a fucking nightmare!
Bring back DJ.
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Danner.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break.
That's fucking nonsense. You see white people doing drugs, they look worse than normal white people, and all white people look disgusting.
And the alpha males,
psych, fuck them.
Snowflake says what? Snowflake says what?
A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. Okay, I'm making stupid money. Hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. All lives matter.
Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black African. And the alpha males are black. And the Africans are back.
When you see Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keeping it 100. Can't knock the hustle. Come on, fuck them. Things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday. Happy birthday to me, Jew boy.
I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back. Africans are black. Alpha males are black. Africans are back.
Come on. Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.
We are back. It's the fun half, ladies and gentlemen. Fun half. Minnesota Teamster says, Matt sent you a clip at Majority Reporter's email about Minnesota legislature. We will take a look at that. Last report, negotiators were meeting in Qatar about extending the Israel-Hamas truce and the idea of releasing more hostages, prisoners on on both sides. Meanwhile, the IDF is fighting it in Lebanon. There are reports, and we saw this the other day, where Murphy sort of hinted at the idea that, like, it's not absurd to put conditions on aid. We do that with all of our recipients of aid. And doing it with Israel would not be in any way unique. Ben Cardin, the chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, I think by the end of the day, had said he is not for doing that for whatever reason. But increasingly, it is looking like there is more and more talk of this in the Senate. Ken Klippenstein over at The Intercept, Daniel Boguslaw, are reporting that Bernie Sanders may bring a vote on conditioning aid to Israel in the coming weeks. And he spoke to The Intercept minutes before a Senate Democratic caucus luncheon. Meanwhile, the New York Times simultaneously reports that Democrats are clashing with each other in the Biden administration over whether to attach conditions, including measures to avoid civilian casualties, to this next round of cash. Apparently, Jake Sullivan met with about 20 Democratic senators who have raised concerns about how Israel might use U.S. assistance on the battlefield. So at the very least, that's half of the, or close to half of Senate Democrats. And again, you know, there's only so much that can be done by the U.S., and that is basically withholding aid at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And there's only so much that we can do to influence that process, because foreign policy tends to be the least responsive of a rather unresponsive system to begin with. However, it really does appear that some people are getting the message that this has really just become, it's been a slaughter for quite some time. But that there's not going to be peace unless Israel is in some way constrained. And this isn't just Democrats, apparently. Here's Senator Mike Rounds, Republican from South Dakota, who is apparently realizing that the tide is sort of turning in terms of public opinion.
I want to move on to Israel. And if you agree with some senators, Bernie Sanders, one of them, Chris Murphy, another one, who are saying more aid to Israel has to come with conditions. Senator Sanders has been asking for things like a freeze on settlement expansion in the West Bank, a commitment to a two-state solution, a real change in Israel's approach to the bombings in Gaza. Do you think it needs to be conditional, more aid to Israel, or unconditional?
You know, I go back to what happened after 9/11 for us. Our allies didn't walk in and simply say, we're going to have the following conditions before we help you. And,
pause it for 1 second.
I think right
now, most people feel like they should have. I just want to be clear.
I have a regret that no one could check us.
Had the British, had the French said, hey, are you sure about this whole weapons of mass destruction thing? Before you go and kill hundreds of thousands, if not 1 million innocent civilians, create millions of internal and external refugees, destabilize the region for decades, probably cause a growing fascism in Europe because of the destabilization.
The Onion, I think, maybe made a warning about that.
Is there any chance that we could maybe place a condition like you need to really be sure that this is going on? That might have been a good thing, but maybe Mike Rounds had a different experience than the rest of us.
after 9/11 for us, our allies didn't walk in and simply say, we're going to have the following conditions before we help you. And I think right now, as an ally of Israel, we have to look at that and say, look, this is their 9/11. Let's help them right now, but it's okay for us to discuss with them long-term how that support continues on.
Okay.
And if they're losing the public relations battle, then they need to be told, you may have to look at
Do you
other
think they
approaches
are?
to getting this job done.
Do you think right now
Yeah, I
Israel's...
think they are. Yeah. Yeah, I think they are. I think they're very cognizant of the fact that they need to win the public relations battle as well, but they have to take out Hamas. And we should be supportive in that, but we should also be providing them advice, but not necessarily limiting it, saying we're not going to provide assistance if you don't meet the following conditions. I think that would be a mistake.
Don't condition it now. Senator Mike Rounds.
And we should say that the IDF had like a press junket on Capitol Hill yesterday in an attempt to sort of shore up their support. If this guy from South Dakota is feeling like they're losing the battle of public perception, then I've got news for you. They're losing the battle of public perception. And well, should they? I think this is, at least a sign that we're getting closer to the U.S. exercising some control. So the longer this truce can exist, the shorter the window that Israel will have to continue to attack civilians. And let's be clear, there is no getting rid of Hamas. That's not going to happen. And I would imagine the reason why we are seeing extension on these talks by the Israelis is both a function of the Israeli population, although they want to raise Gaza, broadly speaking, I think it's about 80%, want to flatten Gaza. They also want the hostages back. But I think the other thing is probably that the IDF realizes, like, we're not going to be able to do this. We're going to run up against this this growing sense that we should not be killing as many Palestinian civilians and children and adults, for that matter, to root out Hamas. When at the end of the day, we're not going to be rooting out the leadership. They're just going to. Yeah. It's just going to.
How many tanks do you want to get blown up in Gaza?
So that's where we're headed, but it can't get here soon enough, as far as I'm concerned. And I would imagine what they talked about at that Democratic caucus meeting. And I think that's where, some of the IDF representatives were there talking, is they're basically negotiating over how much time they're going to have. And then the IDF has to go back and decide, well, if we're only going to have 2 weeks, do we really want to engage in this? I imagine what we're going to see is probably another round, if I had to guess, another brief round of like massive air campaign, and then a pullback, declare victory. And because they don't seem to have any type of political plan for afterwards. And the reason why the Israelis don't have a political plan for afterwards, or at least a political plan in the one that everybody keeps talking about, like, why don't they have it, is because their political plan is to do exactly what they've been doing. Their political plan is to take more and more Palestinian land in the West Bank, to continue to inhibit the ability of the Palestinian people to organize as a political entity, one that has any power, and to just keep punting. 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, that's it. And then the cycle will continue to repeat itself.
It'll be time to bomb the universities and parliament again.
10, 20 years from now, maybe some of them will be rebuilt. It really is just, I don't know. It's amazing. And, I guess some people don't necessarily watch the show anymore, saw the Dennis Prager clip. I got some emails from some old-time listeners from Air America. I don't know what happened to you. You used to be, your critiques of Israel were more about reform, or I don't know what it was. I'm like, yes, 20 years ago I had a different opinion than I do today.
A lot of people, it was more on the table.
It was more on the table. We were closer to and we were, and frankly, there's more information today. I mean, in addition to the context, I don't know that the context is dramatically changed, but it has to some extent. You didn't have 700,000 settlers in the West Bank. You didn't have ongoing, there was obviously settlements. It was earlier in the project. I mean, we were critical enough in 2004, I've mentioned this, that the ambassador to Israel was apparently monitoring the show. I don't know, he was, or staff, and kept offering him up. We ended up having him on the program so that he could have our little debate. But you really have to be blind, willfully blind. But apparently I got the 9th email on his mitzvah Gedolah, which was about sending out emails, and I'm the sinner. Yeah, I know it's a little bit arcane, but turning off the voicemail, number 646-257-3920. I will take your phone calls in just a moment. Couple IMs. Iowa Ryan. My mom passed away yesterday. She was as far right as you can get. She believed Rush Limbaugh about cigarettes not being bad for you. I love the Majority Report because you tell me the truth. Rush never gave subs to people hurting financially. May he rest in piss. Thank you for treating your fans with respect. Iowa Ryan, this...
If you can't make the payment, get in touch on email.
That's for your mom. Recipe. Sorry. Casey, answer. YouTube started playing yesterday's live show instead of today's. Like the stream and subscribe. Okay. Hey, buddy, we see you. Impossible to watch the live show on YouTube without ad interruptions. I almost exclusively listen these days. Yeah, we're looking into pulling that back a little bit. If you watch the stream before it goes live, sometimes it'll connect to the fun half, and very rarely it'll send you the previous day's fun half link. Thank you, Kowalski, for that. Cosmopolitics. You're not that old, Sam. Well, thank you. What is the point of all this Hunter Biden nonsense if the GOP doesn't want to expose him to the public? I know my favorite headline was Atrios's. Let's see where that is. Wait a second.
Was that IMer making that joke, or was that just happened to be
I
the way they
don't know. There's quotes for exposed, so I would say yes. Atrios is Hunter Biden's hog. The Republicans know it's too powerful, and they're scared to let the rest of the world see it. I mean, it is amazing how much we heard from people that the story, and we still don't know what was in Hunter Biden's laptop that was so incriminating. I don't know why we haven't. But how the idea that the laptop existing was going to change the nature of the election. Why wouldn't you want, release the laptop? Well, here's Hunter Biden. Ask him any question you want in public. See if he can answer it. You've got all the goods on him. You got his whole laptop. That wouldn't be a dramatic thing. I mean, it just doesn't work.
Love is all in the chase. I mean, remember Hillary's Benghazi hearing? That was her highest moment.
Well, that's what they're afraid of.
Exactly. They propelled her to the nominee, basically. And yeah, once you get him on the stand and it realizes oh, this is kind of anticlimactic.
Yeah. Well, the whole point is it's a little bit early for people to realize There's no there. Lori's guy, are you going to cover the Newsom-DeSantis debate tomorrow night live? I'm going to bet no. I mean,
I wonder if that might be more unbearable than some of the primary debates. It's just the amount of self-aggrandizement on both ends is going to be truly.
well, this is going to be a real Hail Mary for Ron DeSantis. But the question is like, what does he do? Like, what is left for Ron DeSantis to try?
Because Newsom loses nothing by not having any sort of stake in the race at all. He's still totally primed.
No, as soon as they get on the stage, DeSantis is the loser.
Right.
Like, why are you debating somebody who's not even running for office?
I think if Newsom is smart, he almost opens with that. Like, literally,
Totally.
Why did you agree to this?
Yeah,
I'm not running for president. You're giving me free reign to have a platform.
Yeah, no.
To discuss
If I was Gavin Newsom,
ideas.
the first thing I would say is like, look, I just want to be clear. I've been busy governing my state, so I haven't really prepared much for this, but I don't feel like I need to. What is fascinating to me is here's a guy who's supposedly a governor of a state, who's supposedly a presidential primary candidate, and he's debating somebody who's just another governor. Isn't your whole pitch about you're the guy who gets stuff done? What are you doing? But that aside, I really appreciate Ron showing up tonight. I think he's a good guy for doing so. That's how I would open it up.
Can't wait to see the height difference too.
Oh my God.
Rod's gonna be
Right now, you got to imagine the past like 6 weeks have been DeSantis in a laboratory with like shoemakers.
He's gonna be wearing
like he's LeBron James.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
They're gonna be stretching his feet.
We have new technology. They can't even tell your foot only goes halfway down the insole.
Exactly. Sam's hanging Chad. So I went home for Thanksgiving, and my brother, who's been watching a lot of Joe Rogan this past year or so, tells me I watched some of Tucker Carlson's web show, and he actually makes some good points. Lord help me. Oh, did you see the trailer for the new Daily Wire comedy called Lady Ballers? We have both the versions, the one that Crowder did and the one that all right, let me take one phone call and then we'll get into this. Calling from a 920. Oh, is this the guy from yesterday? 920?
Yeah, 1 second. Let me get off my.
What was it?
Hey, this is Ryan from Wisconsin.
Hi, Ryan from Wisconsin. Oh, okay. Now, it occurred to me that we bumped this guy. I think his name was Muhammad, because I got that message that we were on hold with Prager, and then I totally forgot. Obviously, I didn't go back to him because it was like a 20-minute deal. But I'm sorry. Okay, Ryan from
Wisconsin.
What's on your mind?
Hey, I've been sitting on this for about a week and a half now, but I don't know if you saw, pertaining to Wisconsin, but the new plant hardiness maps just dropped about a week and a half ago.
The new what?
The plant hardiness maps.
Of the plant hardiness maps?
Yeah.
You mean like how hardy plants are giving their growing zone?
Yeah, like growing zones, yeah.
Yeah, USDA plant hardiness.
I'm sorry, no, I did not. But I see what this is about the zone shifting, isn't it?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing was that from the Illinois border along the Lake Michigan shoreline through Milwaukee, about 100 miles north, is now like a 6A, which is similar to like central Illinois.
Yep.
I went from a 5A to a 5B.
All right, let me explain what this is to people. In fact, I made Matt sent me a thing of apples yesterday. I made a growing zone joke to him, which I don't know if anybody got on our email chain. The U.S. Well, I mean, I imagine this is, but it's the USDA basically has a list of zones, which give you a sense of like what trees or shrubs or plants or, fruits that you can grow in that zone based upon what the climate has been like, what the average temperature is. You get a sense of like when the first freeze is going to be and what plants are hardy there. And over the years, they also have like subdivisions of these zones. So you could be zone 5A, zone 5B. And because of climate change, what you could grow in zone 5, or I should say what you could grow in zone 6 25 years ago, you can now grow in zone 5, and so on. And I haven't seen the new map, but it sounds like you've noticed some changes for you.
Yeah, I think, like I said, the shocking part, I think, was the 6A zone kind of creeping into Wisconsin along the Lake Michigan shoreline. And then the 3B zone, the real cold stuff, is pretty much gone from the state now.
Wow.
So everything, especially in like northwest Wisconsin, it's quite a bit warmer up there than even, so thought that was interesting and kind of pertinent to the guest today.
It's terrifying. I mean, farmers more than anybody else, I think, understand that climate change is real. I mean, and I don't know. I don't know if we still need to say that, but for the most part, like, maybe the Republican Party has moved on to it's just not man-made, but it's going to have impact. There's no doubt about it. I mean, we're seeing it just even in the most banal of ways. Appreciate the call.
Yeah, I still hear one last thing. I still hear from conservatives in my area. I live in a pretty blue tiny dot in a very red area, but a lot of conservatives I talk to, they still talk about like the global cooling talking points from like, was that the 50s or 60s?
Like
pretty disheartening.
What is the global cooling? Oh, they're saying that it's.
Yeah, I think I was talking to them. I looked into the history of this. It was a scientific theory posited in the 50s, but it was based on bad data. So as like data techniques got better and improved, and we got more data, it was discarded by the 60s, and that's about when it hit the mainstream. And so through the 60s and 70s, that was a big talking point, especially here in Wisconsin for some reason.
Interesting. Well, appreciate the call.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Wisconsin Kowalski.
Exactly. I don't know if he was, I don't know how deep into it he is. Calling from a 306 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hello, is this me?
Yes, it is you.
How are my AirPods doing?
Yeah, those things are a nightmare.
I'm phoning about kind of that Pine Tree Power thing that failed.
Yeah, Pine Tree Power was this attempt by folks in Maine to publicize, make public, or basically do a public takeover of their energy production. Ironically, one of the major companies that fought this initiative, that runs their private power, is Calgary, Canada's public utility.
Yes, that was me who sent you that, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's nuts. Well, it's not nuts. I mean, it makes sense for them, but I mean, it's just, I guess, sadly ironic. I don't know.
Yeah, so I'm from Canada, Saskatchewan.
Mm-hmm.
We have government-owned utility, monopoly, distribution, transmission, generation, largely generation.
Yeah.
There is some real negatives to this. We have a hard right government in Saskatchewan, and we have a carbon tax, right? So it's really affecting so Saskatchewan has a regulated monopoly or whatever, and Alberta next to us has like a free market kind of thing, like a spot pricing thing.
Yeah.
And the carbon tax has kind of forced Alberta to, they have a hard right government as well, forced them to kind of stand in the way of the carbon tax, which is incentivizing all these wind, solar projects. So the Alberta government put a moratorium on wind and solar projects because it was working, right? Carbon tax was working.
Right.
Driving it, whatever. And they're basically, Saskatchewan has been able to, because they have this monopoly. They can basically just stand in the way and not construct any of that stuff. So it's kind of like, maybe I'm a little concerned that you get these publicly owned things in right-wing jurisdictions, and it can cause it can give them the ability to just delay and deny the transition.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
I mean, at the end of the day, I would rather it be in somewhat democratic hands, small d, than corporate ones. But I understand what you're saying. I mean, look, what you're describing is the problem with having conservatives run government. And they're able to do that with public control of the utility, but they would be, if they were running the government and it was private utilities, they would just do it in a different way. You know what I mean?
I think so. I just saw, it seemed like in Alberta, the free market kind of carbon tax was working more than it was working here. But yeah, it kind of requires, like, we have, like oil and gas country, right? So it's
right.
People are like really tied to it,
right?
And they have trouble. Like they see this as like taking away their wealth. Whereas in Alberta with the market, it was a market-based solution by the federal government, Trudeau, to do that, and it was working in the market scenario, but it wouldn't work. It didn't work in the kind of the regulated market where you have the government control it. So it's just like, I don't know, kind of maybe carbon tax and talk about the carbon tax a little bit.
No, all right. Well, I gotta jump, but I do appreciate it.
Just risk of the carbon tax is that the Conservatives are going to win the next election because of running on the carbon tax. So maybe that's market-based solutions aren't the way to go. I don't know.
Yep. All right. Well, I appreciate the call. Thank you.
Have a good one.
Angela from Alberta, from my Saskatchewan neighbor, the regulations are still under the government. Your cost is lower than ours. Kowalski, there is no Wisconsin Kowalski, Matt. I am me, and there is no other.
Not sure about that. I think I've met some North Dakota Kowalskis, some Minnesota Kowalskis, so,
This is getting a little controversial. Those are fighting words. Where was that? Oh yeah, this is good. We have two of these impeachment with him. Two goes with what now? What was it? 10, right? Let's start with number. Which one should we start with? Let's do Mike Johnson first. Mike Johnson took questions on Capitol Hill press conference yesterday. This one's from Delaney. I think he's at HuffPost. Where is he from? Delaney. Arthur Delaney, yeah. I don't know where he is now. I think Arthur Delaney asked this question, which was really to the point, because the heart of the impeachment push by Republicans is all about Joe Biden going to Ukraine back in 2012, I can't remember exactly when it was, 2014, and saying you need to fire your prosecutor if you want to start trading with the Europeans, because the European in Ukraine, I think, still probably has a pretty significant corruption problem. There's a lot of places that do, but Ukraine had an incredibly bad corruption problem in the aughts and into the first half of into this past decade. And Biden went there and said, "You're not getting aid unless you deal with your corruption problem. You fire your chief prosecutor, essentially." And we've said this before. This was the stated official policy of the U.S. government. Joe Biden was not freelancing. He was sent over there to articulate U.S. policy, which was also on behalf of our European allies. You can disagree with that policy, but the whole impeachment narrative is he did this to protect his son, who was not yet on the board of directors for Burisma. And Shokin has claimed that he had opened an investigation into Burisma, but by all accounts, he had not. And they wanted him to. So Arthur Delaney asked Mike Johnson, you've heard testimony from State Department officials during the Trump impeachment. State Department said that was our policy. Joe Biden was there not making up his own policy. That was State Department policy. And how does Mike Johnson react to that?
Let me go back. Yes, yeah.
The official act that was corrupt that Republicans are alleging today is that when he was vice president, Joe Biden pushed for the firing of the Ukrainian prosecutor. And this was the subject of the impeachment of Donald Trump. And you had a lot of State Department officials who came in and said, this wasn't Joe Biden's policy, this was our policy. He didn't do this to benefit his son. He did this because we wanted him to do it. So did they all commit perjury, or are you going to bring them back for more interviews? Why are Republicans just ignoring all that testimony?
All right, pause. Just in case you didn't hear this. Now, again, this is specifically the Biden impeachment inquiry press conference. They literally have a sign on Mike Johnson's, not on Mike Johnson's, on his podium. And the question is, you had State Department officials who testified under oath that it was State Department policy to fire Shokin. Are you going to bring them back and hold them accountable for their perjury? Apparently, Mike Johnson does not want to have to answer that question.
So did they all commit perjury, or are you going to bring them back for more interviews? Why are Republicans just ignoring all that testimony?
No one's ignoring testimony. Let me tell you the top 4 pieces of evidence with regard to the Biden. I just got bullet points here. From 2014 to 2019, Biden family members and their affiliate companies received over $15 million from foreign companies and foreign nationals. These are all facts. Facts are stubborn things. That included Ukraine, Russia, Kazakhstan, Romania, and China.
Pause it. Here's another fact. This guy claims he doesn't have a bank account. No interest bearing, just checking account. Never has enough to transfer it over from that savings account. Get that 1% interest or whatnot. He's done quite well for himself, actually. They've done quite well. It's not, these guys are not going paycheck to paycheck.
Received over $15 million from foreign companies and foreign nationals. These are all facts. Facts are stubborn things. That included Ukraine, Russia, Kazakhstan, Romania, and China. Biden business associates received an additional $9 million. The chairman here have uncovered a lot of facts.
Pause it. What does Biden business associates mean? What does that even mean? Biden's not in business with these people. Or as you just use the word Biden and it means anybody who's in business.
Right.
And then any Biden who's in business
Jim
who has
Biden,
associates.
Hunter Biden.
Yeah, exactly. Can you imagine if they did this with the Bush family? Oh, Jesus.
That included Ukraine, Russia, Kazakhstan, Romania, and China. Biden business associates received an additional $9 million. The chairman here have uncovered a lot of facts. President Biden has, of course, lied at least 16 times about his involvement in his family's business schemes. There are at least 22 examples of Joe Biden speaking with or meeting with Hunter Biden's foreign business associates. The Oversight Committee recently released 2 checks. You see the graphics up here today. These checks are to Joe Biden. One is for $40,000 from China, and another is for...
Pause it. $40,000 signed China. This is how China's going to bribe. All we need is 40 grand and we can get the president of the United States to do what we want. Hey, you know what?
Comes by a Corvette with that.
It's like literally like you get like a mid-level Subaru Outback. You can just imagine like all of the like the top Chinese leadership going like, who knew it would be so cheap?
This is an absolute bargain.
It's such a bargain. And you know, Xi is just looking around going like, This is why you ask.
Yeah, exactly.
This is why you ask. Instead of like, editing yourself and saying like, there's no way.
Saudis had to give Kushner $2 billion.
Exactly. 40 grand.
That is a fraction.
It's unbelievable.
It's because Joe doesn't know how to do a deal. That's all.
Did you know how to do a deal? You had no idea. 40 grand. That's all it took.
I know how to do a deal, says Jared.
The Oversight Committee recently released 2 checks. You see the graphics up here today. These checks are to Joe Biden. One is for $40,000 from China, and another is for $200,000 from a now bankrupt healthcare company that his brother James Biden apparently swindled. Listen, this.
All right, now let's also be clear. Wasn't that the loan that he gave his brother, and his brother gave it back to him?
A loan for corruption.
Yes.
And another is for $200,000 from a now bankrupt healthcare company that his brother James Biden apparently swindled. Listen, this investigation has to continue because, again, as we
He almost said operation, didn't he?
I'm not going to answer.
This operation has to continue.
Biden apparently swindled. Listen, this investigation has to continue because, again, as we said, those facts are stubborn things. I'm not going to answer outside questions about this. We let the facts speak for themselves, and I think you're going to see a lot more developments over that in the days ahead.
Take questions.
I'm willing to bet you're not going to see a lot more developments in the days ahead.
I'm sitting at a podium taking questions, but I'm not going to answer any questions.
I'm not going to answer any questions about people who probably lied to the committee based upon every sort of like the foundational claim that we're making here. Maria Bartiromo had on Representative Lisa McClain, Republican from Michigan. About what it is, tell us what we're looking for here. Where's the there? And here is Representative McClain.
It's incredible what your committee has been able to expose. So much information about these 20 shell companies that Joe Biden set up and his family set up while he was vice president, the 176 suspicious activity reports, the witness testimony, of course, all indicating or suggesting that there could be some serious crime here like bribery or money laundering. Have you been able to identify any actual policy changes that Joe Biden made as a result of getting money from China?
The short answer is no. That's what we're trying to get to right now. That's why Jamie Comer, or Chairman Comer, is requesting those documents that the FBI knew he had those classified documents for 18 months and sat on those. What were in those documents? Because what Jamie Comer has been able to do is actually take a concept and actually have forensic data to connect the dots, different than what happened, say, under the last administration where it was just a bunch of hearsay. That's why it's critical to have Hunter Biden come in and testify, James Biden come in and testify, and to get those classified documents, because that's what we need to connect the dots, and that's what he's doing.
Connecting the dots. We don't have we have suggestions about payments, but we have not even an idea about what for.
I love the idea of her being like, Comer has made what he's done that's so unique is take a concept and then try and find the evidence after the concept.
It really is. It's what's also fascinating is how much this still, I think it really resonates on the right. There's no doubt in my mind. Mm-hmm. I am convinced that 80% of Trump voters would be like, well, I have to do it because Joe Biden's so corrupt.
Yeah, this is why QAnon took off with that part, because this is what the official party does.
But the whole point of these type of things, and it's certainly, worked as, with Clinton, but the whole point of these type of things is to build this narrative that Biden is corrupt, but it bounces up against the fact that he's old and incompetent, and or old and feeble, The old and feeble thing is sticking a little bit because, well, he's old. It's just the truth of the matter. But the corrupt thing is just feels like, I don't know.
Oh, wow. $40,000 to, oh man. And a business partner got $1 million. Wow.
A business associate, not even a partner.
Yeah.
Just an associate.
America is doomed now.
It is fascinating to watch how much of a fail this is, though, for them. I haven't seen it, something like that. Secret sauce for destruction. Sorry if this is overly rudimentary, but are Republicans not worried that this impeachment stuff is creating a precedent that could hurt Trump later? Seems like everything they're saying Biden did, Trump definitely did. Definitely. Yes, but the problem with this is that Democrats are so timid with this stuff. Remember when they were going to subpoena Harlan Crow and Leonard Leo? Harlan Crow, I mean, this is just astonishing. I want to make it clear. Clarence Thomas did not know Harlan Crow until after Clarence Thomas became a Supreme Court justice.
Right,
These are not
a friendship of 30 years.
Yeah, they did not like go to junior high together. They were not like college buddies. That's not what this is about. When he says they're friends, they became friends because Leonard Leo introduced Harlan Crow to Clarence Thomas because the Federalist Society was worried that Supreme Court justices were taking too much flack and they might just say, to hell with it. I'm not making any money at this. I can go quit and sit on a bunch of corporate boards and make millions. Millions upon millions. And so what did they do? They basically set up a dating service. We're going to match you, a billionaire, with your own Supreme Court justice that you will develop a relationship with. For you as a billionaire get access to one of the most powerful people in the country. You can either use that power or just flaunt it. And you as a Supreme Court justice, you're not going to have to wonder what it would be like. What kind of life could I live if I had more money as not a Supreme Court justice, because Harlan Crow is going to pay for your mother's house. Harlan Crow is going to pay for your private school education for your kid. Harlan Crow is going to take you on trips that you could never dream of going on. You could go out and make a couple $1 million a year, but you'd have to blow it all on your house in Maryland or wherever it is on the beach. Harlan Crow will fly you to wherever you want to go. Fishing vacations. I mean, that's basically what it is. And so the Judiciary Committee was going to subpoena Harlan Crow and subpoena Leonard Leo, who was basically the matchmaker. And all it took was one page, I guess it was 6 pages, of gruel coming out of the Supreme Court saying, well, we have some ethics. And they're backing off it. So are Republicans afraid this is going to set a precedent? No, because they know who the Democratic Party is. And they also know who the media is. I mean, it's just a fact. I mean, do you have that? I don't know if you have a link to this. Media Matters did a study. You remember when, do you remember when Hillary Clinton called, I don't know if she called Trump voters or whoever it was deplorables. I don't even know what the real story is, actually. She mentioned that some of these people are deplorables. Of course they are. I mean, frankly, I think she's deplorable too, but nevertheless, let's just look at this, sort of like just as at arm's length. Donald Trump referred to Democratic voters as vermin, which is, I'm not sensitive to these things. But are we to believe that if Donald Trump had said deplorable instead of vermin, that there would have been the massive amount of news coverage that the same comment that Hillary Clinton did? Put up a couple, scroll down here and look at these, they've done an assessment. Here, TV news broadcast coverage of Clinton deplorables and Trump's vermin comments. It's crazy. And it's not just, this is just broadcast news. We're not even talking about sort of partisan news. Cable news coverage. Also ridiculous. Again, there's all sorts of partisan amplification on this. Scroll down. Print news, same deal. You can't even see the blue. You can't even see it. The Times and Washington Post and the Journal went in on the deplorable comments. I don't, I only bring this up, not because I'm whining about it, but this is just the reality. When you make an assessment of what Democrats can or cannot do and what Republicans can or cannot do politically, you have to be aware of how the media covers them. And this has been true for at least 25, 30 years. Whether there was a Fox News or not a Fox News. It got really bad in the wake of 9/11. And it got really bad when Drudge was a gateway from Fox and from the right-wing media, which was nascent at that time. Drudge became a gateway to the ABC producers, essentially, and then it just got laundered in. It's a different media ecosystem now. But you should just be aware that this dynamic exists. And so you have people who are saying the reason why Joe Biden's favorability rating is so low is because the media is covering the economy wrong. And there's definitely some truth to that. The media is always, but this is constant. This is consistent throughout. The real problem I think that Biden has in terms of favorability, aside from the fact that he has been completely enabling the wholesale ethnic cleansing, genocide of I would say wholesale ethnic cleansing, partial genocide of Palestinians in Gaza, is just because he's perceived as old. And Donald Trump may be as old or close to it, but he's not perceived as such because he just looks, I don't know, fatter, more mobile, and that was never part of his appeal anyways. When the right wing looks at him, they see him with one of those muscle bodies that they put on in the cartoons, because they're deluding themselves. But and I don't know that I don't know that Joe Biden can't do his job at this point. He probably can. But part of that old narrative is not helped by what's going on in the way that he's reacting to Israel. Because the politics in that disposition is also old. It is anachronistic. So it's not just a physical thing. It's not just him acting like a grandpa. It's that his understanding of the context of these things is antiquated in many ways. And Donald Trump does not have that same problem. Donald Trump's politics come from whatever Mark Levin said yesterday on his talk radio show. And so he's just more current. And I think that thing people don't understand. But also, we talked about this yesterday. I think there are people who are, and I think the Biden administration, what did they do today? Here's Joe Biden yesterday. This is at the supply chain talk. And I mentioned this yesterday. I've mentioned it a couple of times. The PCCC did some polling that they were introducing to the White House, saying like, you guys, you're not even getting credit for your positions on Social Security relative to Donald Trump. Like, this is a thin slice of the electorate who could be, who this could move in one way or another. But the election is going to be won with a very thin slice of the electorate. I mean, paper thin slice. And if Donald Trump is out there doing better than you on Social Security, you're not talking about Social Security enough. And you're not pointing out these issues with the Republicans wanting to cut Social Security, want to cut Medicaid under the guise of cutting the Affordable Care Act. It's only rhetoric, but sometimes rhetoric gets followed by a more ambitious program anyways. Biden administration sending out emails to student loan recipients who are going to have their loans relieved in some fashion, about 800,000. Again, good, insufficient. But at least they're getting the message that maybe this is something for them to try. And the rhetoric, if it's successful in any way, will be followed, hopefully, by at least proposals. But here is Biden during the supply chain conference. And he is talking about, he's opening up to Social Security and Medicare.
Fortunately, we've been able to push back on MAGA Republicans so far. But they haven't given up. They haven't given up. They still want to undo this progress we're making. They're proposing cuts in investments in roads, bridges, the internet, and high-speed internet, the very things that provided from anyway, they're just across the board. And the cuts that could result in loss of jobs and infrastructure and in manufacturing. And they want to go back to the bad old days when corporations looked around the world to find the cheapest labor they could find, to send the jobs overseas, and then import the products back to the United States. Now, we're building the products here and exporting products overseas. We're not importing jobs. Folks, we're not importing anything other than what we make. We're making it here and we're sending it overseas rather than going to the cheapest place we can go to have it made. Bottom line, they want to make the whole supply chain more vulnerable. Their plan would offshore jobs, raise costs for seniors by repealing the insulin price reduction, the caps on out-of-pocket drug expenses, and the ability to negotiate lower drug prices that I secured in the Inflation Reduction Act. Their plan would cut Social Security benefits. I thought we had this, they agreed not to do this a couple times, but they're back at it. Benefits, average benefit cut would be 13% for people, by 13%, those that we can cut. Their plan would also cut Medicare while providing more tax giveaways to the wealthy and the biggest corporations. And my predecessors, once again, God love them, call for cuts that could rip away health insurance for tens of millions of Americans in Medicaid. They just don't give up. But guess what? We won't let these things happen.
All right. Two things. One, the guy is old. Like you can't watch that. And now, again, personally, I don't know how much I care.
FDR was old.
I don't care. Well, nobody was that old.
Yeah, that's true.
But I don't really care because I'm not voting for Joe Biden. I'm voting for who is going to be in his administration, what their policies are, whatnot. But the vast majority of people in the country do not host a YouTube show and podcast talking about politics. And they just look at that guy and go like, what? We're not importing jobs? I thought we wanted to import jobs. Oh, you meant we're not importing anything else. Like, I mean, I could.
The surface level is so prominent for like lower so-called lower information voters, so that if you see that, you're only seeing the broad stroke. You're only seeing the like this is kind of a doddering old man.
Yeah.
Whether that's charitable or not.
Exactly. So the point is that instead of like reading off a laundry list of these things, he should be coming out and saying, we want to raise Social Security payments by 10%. That's it. I challenge Congress to do that. I'm going to take a nap. Honestly, that's what should be going on here. And hopefully they get there. But like this, you know, I mean, the fact that he's raising Social Security and Medicare, that's good. But in the context of this, and you know, and I guess like, you know, it gets filtered out. Not everybody's going to watch him speak. They're going to read about it and people are going to talk about it. But nevertheless, that is not, it's not giving, like, you know, that doesn't give me a lot of confidence. But here's the other thing that people have to recognize, I think, because surrogates and people are they're going to have to recognize, like, there is when we talk about the economy, people's lived experience of the economy does not necessarily match up with the numbers that would suggest the economy is doing very well. And even if there is undue influence by the media, the other thing that I think people don't fully appreciate is that there has been a change in the body politic, particularly in the areas where Democrats go fishing for votes. Theoretically, we should not have as much labor dissension as we have now. Right? I mean, if you're just going to look at the sheer numbers, wages are up. Unemployment is low. And if you just look at that and go like, why would workers be upset? Well, workers have a reinvigorated confidence in their ability to do better than they've been doing for the past several decades. There is no reason to expect that notion of I should be doing better than I've been doing wouldn't apply across the board. Everybody. It's just that, you know, some instances there is institutional support. Some instances there's already organizing. In some instances, there's just like, I don't have an outlet to change my material circumstance. So I'm going to register my dissatisfaction. And I'm going to look to the one guy who, for better or for worse in this country, I would say for worse, I think is in charge of everything. Daddy president, grandpa president. And they're not doing it. They're not fixing it. And I think like this point needs to be understood so that the proper pressure can be applied to the administration so they start rolling out proposals that create benchmarks from which the Democratic Party can be measured against and provide some semblance of what a second term agenda looks like. Because I just don't think that the dynamic where people are worried about, Republicans are not going to go out there and say Joe Biden is about to turn this country into a socialist nightmare. They've tried to do it. It doesn't work. And it also steps on their messaging that he's a doddering old man who can't do anything anyways. And here's what I'm talking about, like in deluding themselves a little bit. Put up that first graph about this is the year over year change in the national rent index. And what this does is it shows that like the rent shot up after like the first year of the pandemic. Rents shot up at the rate of change. Okay. But then this graph, if you just look at it, like listen, I'm not a math guy.
And I've actually seen another graph that maybe says
Well, we have the other one.
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay. So move my, because I want to show, like move me, Put the graph up. Don't put me in the insert. Okay. If your average person looks at this graph and goes like, oh, well, okay, there was a big bump and it's gone back down to where it was. This is a rate of increase. This is the thing that is, this isn't about like crime statistics. If this was like crime statistics, this is how many crimes are happening. I'd be like, okay, we had a bump and we're back to where we were, which is more or less what's happening with our crime statistics. But this is a rate of increase. So we went through a narrow period, really only like 14 months, 18 months of rent increases going up to 15%, 18%. But now it's back down. But here's another graph that shows the exact same thing. But what this shows is the cost, the actual cost associated. And you see that at that time, you see that steep climb up the hill. That's when rents were increasing. And then you see another steep climb. But the problem is like, even if rents are not increasing now, the difference between your rent in 2023 versus 2020 is $350 a month. And I don't care how much your wages have gone up. You're not making, if you're working the same job as you were in 2019, you're not making $350. I mean, if we're going from $1,100 to $1,350, I guess it's $250. $250, that's, what is it? 10%, 20, 18%?
Yeah.
20%?
This is why
your wages have not gone up 20% in the past 3 years.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, like, if your rent's like that, you're pissed. You're squeezed. It doesn't matter how the economy is performing. It doesn't matter if, broadly speaking,
you'll get used to those wage increases very fast if all of a sudden you have to write that check every month.
Yeah, of course. And this doesn't just, again, we talked about with the mortgage rates. Payments have gone up more than, they've doubled if you're attempting to buy a house for the first time. And here's the other thing. Even if you're locked into your 3.5% rate, and so your rent, your rate hasn't gone up, if your ability to have another child, in a lot of instances, right? Like you're in your starter home, you can't have that other child, or your ability to move, chase a better job, your ability to be near your parents, your ability to get away from your parents, whatever it is. If you're a homeowner who has not a lot of equity in your home, you're stuck and you're pissed, because the reason why you can't move and you don't have the freedom to get into that bigger house and expand your family or whatever it is because of money. It doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter what the economy is doing. You're pissed because you don't have enough money. Even if you have more money than you had in 2019, it's outpaced by your ability to move. Rents and mortgages. I think that's a huge part of this story. And I don't know what Biden can do necessarily, but it's clear they're not thinking about it. They're just thinking like, we need to get the message out of like what we've done and this and that. But if they want to really address this issue, he's got to come out and talk about like housing. He's got to say the words, at least to, lack of a better reference, I feel your pain. He's got to.
The economy is stupid. I mean, this is why, Michael, we had this joke for the Chicago Live show, like landlords for UBI, because like we all like more money in the pockets of people, whether it's through wages or even like a government giveaway. But ultimately, if you don't have any sort of change to the structure of the economy, it's just going to get soaked up by people that can raise prices.
Yeah, I mean, the rental issue is a real problem. I mean, you're going to be pissed if you're locked into a mortgage because you can't afford to sell your house, essentially. You can afford to stay in it, but you can't afford to sell it because you can't afford to buy anything new and rents are way up, you're going to be pissed. If you're just talking about, and the idea of, I don't know, subsidizing housing, building government housing, they've got to address it in some fashion or another, because they're not even acknowledging the problem that exists for people. And, this is on the crudest level possible, just in terms of politics. Not under the fantasy that Joe Biden's going to do anything materially about it in this moment, or can. Maybe he can. I don't know. But they've got to recognize the problem.
No, I fully grant that, or accept that Democrats are preferable to Republicans easily on this. It's just they need to, like you say, be able to elaborate that. Actually,
Well, yeah, as to why. Calling from a 704 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Is this me?
Yep.
Holy shit. I'm so glad I got through. My name's Tom from Chicago, first-time caller, long-time listener.
Tom from Chicago. What's on your mind?
I just wanted to call in and it'll actually relate to something you're about to show, I think. I was in my car about an hour ago watching yesterday's show because I missed it yesterday. And I'm driving, and then all of a sudden I kind of zoned out, I guess. And the next thing I know, there's a trailer on for a Daily Wire movie.
Yes.
I don't remember the name.
Is it something about
Lady Ballers, I think.
Girl balls?
Men dressing up as women, playing sports and hitting women. And yeah,
Crowder's got to feel
quite
like
outrageous.
really left out.
Oh my God.
So I'm driving, and it's like going on. It felt like it was playing for like 30 minutes. I'm like, why the fuck isn't Sam pausing this? I thought it was on your show, but apparently my feed had switched to a commercial, so I had to watch the whole thing. I'm thinking I'm watching the show, and then so I immediately stopped yesterday's show and checked where you're at on today's show and decided to call in because I found it a little ridiculous.
You know what? Thank you for reminding me of that, because we'll get to that very shortly. It is. There's so many things that I can say about this, none of which are really illuminating, but I think this, there are times, like I say, where things just deserve so much mocking.
Well, and it's also like, I don't remember if you remember this movie with Rodney Dangerfield from the early 90s, The Ladybugs, but it's basically a ripoff of that. So.
Oh, I mean, well, bosom buddies, but some like it hot. I mean, this like, it has been, this has been going on for ages. It's just that this is one of it's almost like a challenge. Like, how can I take a well-worn premise, but do it in such an incredibly inane and stupid way with people who are really not that talented? And
or funny. Yeah, I didn't laugh once.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Well, we're gonna take a look at that. I appreciate the call.
All right, take care.
Thanks.
Happy birthday. Till later.
Thank
Bye.
you. Appreciate it. Not in my area, we had such a housing boom that the HUD waiting list is nothing. You apply and you're in a home in 30 days now. We don't have to we don't have the jobs to handle the mass exodus due to housing. I don't get it. You getting a mass exodus due to housing?
Yeah. And also, where are you from?
I don't quite understand that. 502 Drew, my mom, who is a shameless conservative, came to pick something up from me just a few minutes ago. She had some conservative talk show blaring on her car radio, and the guy was griping about student loan debt forgiveness and how fair it was to people like him who was paid off his loans when he was 37. I guess that's the righty aggrievement of the day. Well, that's because of that story that Biden is sending out 800,000 emails to let people know that they have loan forgiveness. Someone just sent an I don't know where it was. They got $100,000 forgiven, and they didn't even know about it until they checked in.
Like, what's the qualifications or whatever? Is that clear, or is it just like surprise you get?
I'm sure it's out there. We went through what is that program? The income repayment
Based
program.
repayment,
Yeah. We've talked about this in the past. It's not a new program. It's just letting people know about it. It's his way of saying, like, what is it? Save program? Yeah. All right, let's go through this garbage here. Should we start with 16? And then we'll do the trailer, right? Because this guy is a deep comedic thinker. First of all, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, Lenny Bruce had a bit. This is the 60s, where he was convinced that you could, and Lenny Bruce, you know, his whole career ended up essentially ending, and he died of an overdose. He was being incredibly harassed by, he would go into Chicago. He'd been arrested in Chicago.
Arrested for comedy, right?
Arrested for comedy, saying stuff about Kennedy, saying stuff about, like, I mean, he was very controversial. He had, you know, he said Jackie Onassis, when she got up and she jumped over, you know, or he had a bit about how the media claimed that Jackie Onassis had like thrown her body on top of Kennedy to protect him from the shooting. And he goes, no, that's not true. She was trying to get out of the car. And it's irresponsible for the media to say that she was trying to cover, because I don't want my daughter putting herself in front of a bullet for her husband. I want her to run. And he had a bit about the N-word. And his whole theory was we can demystify the word by a usage. He came out and he was like, you're an N, you're an N, you're an N, you're an N word, et cetera, et cetera. And he said, you know, and if Kennedy was to roll out his administration, here's my top N word. And this guy's in charge of, this N word is in charge of this and that. He said the word would have no salience. And I think there's an argument for it. But the point is not that the word in and of itself in a vacuum has some type of magical power.
Totemic power, yeah.
The point is the context in which you're in. Here is Jeremy Boring, Ben Shapiro's business partner, explaining his theory to Tim Pool. Sorry.
Here's the problem. The problem is that anonymity on the internet allows for the ghettoizing of beliefs that are not approved by the regime. So a lot of people will say, well, I have to be anonymous on the internet because if my boss finds out that I've got these views, they'll fire me. But you're only in the position where your boss could fire you for finding out about those views because you've allowed those views to be completely ghettoized through anonymity online.
Now, this is one of the dumbest theories I've ever heard. And his argument is that the reason why somebody might get fired. Well, okay, here's what he's arguing. Think about why someone might get fired from their job. It could be that you're supportive of Palestinian rights in this day and age. It could also be that you're openly saying, you know, we shouldn't be serving black people,
right?
In businesses, you should have the right to deny service to black people.
We ghettoize those people.
Well, according to Jeremy Boring, you're saying that and not owning it publicly is the reason why people feel comfortable firing you if they find out that you said it. And he finds that to be problematic. Now, his theory that because people aren't saying it, he's saying, if you're going to say stuff like that, be loud and proud, which is exactly what like the Proud Boys are about and what actually white nationalists about and Nazis about. That's why they go out and parade and why they try not to have to wear masks. They know the power of not wearing masks, that we're unashamed to say this. That's the way things get normalized. That's his argument. Now, I happen to disagree that it works that way. But what's more important is he's saying we need to be able to normalize these things. So understand where he's coming from in terms of the way he's thinking about this. We need to normalize the things that society finds bad.
But you're only in the position where your boss could fire you for finding out about those views because you've allowed those views to be completely ghettoized through anonymity online.
You don't need to. You're only in that position because at will employment in this country.
Are you for finding out about those views because you've allowed those views to be completely ghettoized through anonymity online? If 5 million people came out today and said the N-word, I'm not recommending it, but no one would ever get fired for saying the N-word again.
Pause it. First of all, that's absurd. That's just simply absurd. Of course they would. And 5 million people are saying the N-word right now, too. But why aren't you recommending it?
Yeah, exactly. Solve the problem.
Well, why aren't you recommending it? No, what he's saying is it's not going to lose its salience. It's going to lose its ability to be curtailed. That's what he's saying. He's going to say, now, reminder, in this country, in 1920, there were 6 million card-carrying members of the KKK, self-identified. That was 6% of the population. It's 100 million people, I think, in 1920 in this country. 6% of the population. 5 million now would represent, 1%, 2%. And the idea that they would say the N-word, it would make it impossible for people to be fired by saying that. That just, first of all, it's just wrong. But what he's saying is, like, we can take the most offensive things that can attack and marginalize people, and we can normalize them. We can make them great again.
And when he says we, like, who's saying it and who's not saying the N-word here? Because black people say it, but it is a kind of a different word when they say it.
Of course,
he
it's all
means,
about
like,
context.
White people need to be able to say
yeah,
it.
I want to know what the context in which they're saying it. I wonder if he feels like the reason why anti-Semitism
to the K word
has been people should be can be fired by anti-Semitism is that not enough people are saying the K word. Of course not. That's reprehensible. That would be reprehensible. Is there any more to
I'm not recommending it, but no one would ever get fired for saying the N-word again. Like
they wouldn't be able to.
You wouldn't be able to. You would have brought that to a conclusion. That little absurdity in our culture would be brought to an end. The ghettoizing of our beliefs allows for the punishment of anyone who steps outside of the ghetto.
Yeah.
So if they catch you saying what you believe, they can fire you. But if we all just had our names on it, and we're saying the things that we believe, and you might say that we would have more cultural cohesion if we didn't have online anonymity too, because the online anonymity also allows us to become more radicalized in ways that left and right, in ways that probably aren't ultimately good.
So, I agree.
This
but
is amazing. And I don't think this tiny brain guy realizes he just completely contradicted himself. What is cultural cohesion other than standards that are applied to people that may manifest themselves in ways you don't think is appropriate? Like, maybe we shouldn't have at-will employment so that you're not allowed to fire somebody. But what is cultural cohesion? He's basically saying that if we didn't have anonymity, then everybody would be part of a ghetto, essentially, that you're not allowed to leave from. It's fascinating. He just contradicted himself in that exact statement. If you didn't have anonymity, you could be shamed more, which would be good because then we wouldn't have extremists on both sides. But we shouldn't have. Be shamed for any issues that are outside of the norm. Go ahead.
Ways that left and right, in ways that probably aren't ultimately good.
I agree, but I think it's a cultural issue that you can't solve with policy. You can't just be like, okay, no one's allowed to be anonymous on the internet. We're gonna require this. My view is if you want to be anonymous in your writings and in your interactions, you can be. But I think culturally, we need to say we don't interact with. If you're not a serious person, I can choose not to interact with you, and then some people will choose.
Whenever I've said publicly that I don't,
It's just unbelievable. I don't think there's been two stupider people have talked to each other in a long time. Culturally, what do you mean we say? How do you culturally decide that we're going to do anything? we're not going to make it policy of these. I'm not even going to recommend that it become policy of these platforms. I'm just going to say that we magically, culturally do this against the other people.
Yeah, and
it's so. I don't even think he understands what culture is.
No.
How do we all decide to do this? Do we all sign a pledge?
Yeah, and calling like that little, what does he call it? That little absurdity, the N-word. It's like any slurs for black people in this country have the weight that they do, including the N-word, because of the history of the treatment of black people in this country.
It's all about context.
Same with any slurs against Native Americans, for instance. Like, and so like anonymity, no, I think probably maybe a reparation for like the sort of violence specifically aimed towards different groups of people is how you deal with like why certain words become weighted this way.
That's the thing is like they're both like what he's really just saying is that he wants to promote his narrow set of views, which he considers not to be extremist, I guess, even though that people feel like they need to be anonymous or they're going to get fired by the non-powers that be. And of course, he would take issue if it was 5 million people saying the K word. And I don't think that would be just a little absurdity that would go away. If 5 million people came out and started saying like, we should gas all the Jews. I don't think Jeremy Boring would be like, thank God we got rid of that absurdity where people, felt like they couldn't say that. And then Tim's going, well, because Tim doesn't know how to say anything in response to this. So he pretends there's a way to do what he wants to agree with Boring, but he wants to make it seem like I'm not agreeing with the idea that we should be able to have 5 million people say the N-word. So I'm not going to dictate, and by he means the government or the platforms. I'm not going to dictate that you can't do this, but we as a collective that somehow Tim feels he has the ability to organize will decide that we're not going to do it to ostracize the people that do. It's just, it just folds in on itself.
Yeah,
that's not what culture means.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Interact with you, and then some people will choose to.
Whenever I've said publicly that I think online anonymity is bad, one thing that comes up a lot is, what about women? Violence against women will increase because men will follow them home and be able to get their home address and all of this. But again, I think that that's a kind of ghetto mentality. The truth is that most of the horrible things that are said to women online aren't said by people who put their names on their accounts.
I think just outside of that, though, I'm more worried about
that. Is
people
also, I mean, he just like flipped from the victim of this violence. They want the anonymity to protect them from people who would attack them. But then he flips it and says, but the anonymity allows people to be rude online. But I don't think these women are just worried about being rude online. It is the implicit threat that exists in real life.
And what does that have to do with a ghetto metaphor, which is like, oh, I'm in the ghetto of being misogynistic and anonymously online? Like what?
No. The ghetto mentality is of the women who are afraid of, they're in the ghetto of, there is violence against women
Guy said he's gonna
by
rape
men.
me.
Exactly. That's ghetto thinking. And go ahead. This is really fascinating. And it's rare you get people who have thought seemingly, or at least projecting that they've thought extensively about things, and this is what they come up with.
Who put their names on their accounts.
I think just outside of that, though, I'm more worried about people wanting to express themselves in any way. Jobs be damned. It's just like, I want people to say whatever they want, however they want, and express themselves that way. I personally prefer a real face and a real name, and that's what I'll always do. But I also understand there's a lot of people, not just because of their jobs, maybe it's family, and I understand, I personally think that's weak of them. But it's what they have to do, and I agree with Tim. If we can change the idea of it without policy, I'm okay. That's
sure.
right.
I mean, there are a lot of problems with trying to change it at a policy level.
Yeah.
For example, the First Amendment. I don't think that it is impossible to make a First Amendment compliant argument for why online anonymity isn't.
Oh, this is so dumb. I can't even bring myself to watch this anymore.
And that philosophy was being piped to earth.
Do they have comment pages on the Daily Wire membership shows, like streams? Like, they have terms of services there. They do not allow people, like, handles or something. Like, this is so dumb. First Amendment is not. Government's gonna pass a thing like you can't be anonymous. No anonymous books. No pseudonyms when you write. So dumb. All right. But I don't know if that's the dumbest thing that we're going to see from Jeremy Boring today.
No, but he's funny because, like, Ben Shapiro has at least chops when it comes to, like, speaking in front of a camera. And, like, I guess I'll grant that to Michael Knowles and Matt Walsh or whatever. But Boring is just the money guy, and he's still getting in front of the camera, too.
Did he, did he attempt to be an actor?
I've never heard of that, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, no, he was a screenwriter. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. There it is.
Gotcha.
That makes sense. That's maybe where he met Shapiro, because Shapiro desperately tried to get into that business and he couldn't.
In it now. He's in this movie, isn't he?
Yes.
Oh yeah, he's the lead.
Boring is Shapiro.
Wait, Boring acts in it?
Yes.
Oh wow.
Jeremy Boring is the lead in the Lady Ballers movie, but Ben Shapiro and a few others have a cameo.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah.
I thought he was just making cameos. That's hilarious. Okay.
Now look,
I wonder if he says the N-word in it.
let's play this. You can only see this, and it's only available on Daily Wire Plus. Now, has Jingle Smells come out? Jingle Smells did come out? All right. We're going to have to do a watching of both these, maybe. And maybe I should watch it with Saul.
Do a commentary track?
A commentary track with my 10-year-old son to see if this is... Now, if Lady Ballers... I mean, I think you can probably figure out what this is about.
It's Juana Man, 2024 or 3.
Or, imagine if Some Like It Hot was done by a bunch of talentless people. And it wasn't musicians, it was sports. Or Bosom Buddies was not about housing and was done by talentless people.
Or if Steven Crowder wrote a basketball movie.
Or let's look at Steven Crowder first. I just want people to remember this is what this is what has been in the comedy genre for years. Steven Crowder did this, and he's got to be pissed. When did he do this? Scroll down there.
It's got to be like 2014 or something like that.
Yeah, Steven Crowder was on this beat a long time ago. This is 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Here's Steven Crowder dressing up like a woman and
telling the cameraman to get his butt.
And going into a Planet Fitness and upset that nobody seems to give a crap.
Ooh.
Yeah. I had forgotten how utterly stupid this is. Yeah.
Maybe just jump a little bit ahead of Model Walk is doing.
Hi.
No one cares.
Well, how are you? First timer? Oh, I like everything's color branded. It's so, I feel like I stepped into Star Wars.
Great joke there.
You don't have a squat rack at all? Okay. That would be the closest thing. Forget that. Forget my head, it wasn't attached. It's just one thing, careful to your back. You can hurt your back. It's a little rounded.
So he's
just make sure
bothering
it's
people,
flat.
making them take their headphones out now.
Excuse me. I just need just some help to get the weight up, and in case just in case for safety. But I should be good.
I mean, it's there's
eventually nothing happens for so long that he starts like throwing equipment around and makes the employees come up and say, "Hey, can you stop doing that? You're disrupting."
Yeah, exactly. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. So based upon the success of that video, Ben Shapiro and Jeremy Boring, do we know who wrote this movie? It is only available on Daily Wire Plus. And I don't know how much that costs to join, but if this doesn't inspire you to join, nothing will. And I'll tell you that we'll try and maybe we'll do like a stream of it or something like that. I wonder how quickly the takedown would be, but maybe we could put it on like Venmo or something. Just like yeah,
we'll send that out to members.
Yeah. All right. Here is Lady Ballers.
In a world where women's sports is being transformed.
The
Daily Wire calls foul with the most triggering comedy of the year.
Pause it. I want to say, as a wrestler, if those two people weighed the same, I'd be surprised. The way that wrestling matches happen is that people are in the same weight class. So the guy who is a foot and a half taller than the woman there, that wouldn't happen. I just want you to know. And I should say, if it was two men and there was that weight differential, there'd also be a problem.
Right. But just for clarification, Boring also wrote it along with a guy named Brian Hoffman, who doesn't have that many IMDb credits, and Nick Sheehan, who is a writer who has written for Shapiro's products.
So those guys really wrote it, and Boring put his name on it.
Or maybe, I mean, it's not like, I'm not looking at this going like, somebody.
That's true, yeah.
Blank could never have written this. I mean, I feel like I would, if Saul came back with this as an idea, I'd be like, well, you're 10, but
yeah,
all right.
This is serious. Sports can be your pathway to a better life.
Well, like yours?
Please don't steal my catalytic converter again. Winning matters. It's the key ingredient in becoming a winner.
Maybe you should try it sometime. Are you gonna move?
I am not.
Let's cut to the chase. I know you're not a woman.
Hey, you don't know how he identifies.
If you can beat them.
What do you know about the U.S. Opens for the Global Games?
You want us to compete as women. $5,000 prizes.
My lover says you were a great coach back in the day.
Join them.
This is the way the world is now. My 8-year-old daughter told me all about it. So a guy can become a girl with no physical changes at all.
Oh, that's called gender fluid.
So I can be a woman on the court and a man in the bedroom. I can't believe it. Nice.
You mean when you're sleeping?
Yes. Coach?
Nice.
We could play
Just like, what, under what sort of system is that funny? Like even, I don't know, maybe it's just an editing problem, but yes.
Coach?
Alex.
We could play basketball.
We'd have to get the whole team back together. It's time.
We're in. I'm in.
I'm in.
To play.
Lady Balders.
Mount up.
Like a girl.
That's right. I'm with her. I'm in my room. This is my room.
From heroes.
Day one of being a girl athlete. I love being a girl.
To sheroes.
We could dominate every woman's sport. Running, swimming, soccer. I said sport, Felix. It's ladies basketball, boys. Nobody watches.
I mean, what's sort of fascinating about
that kind of gives it away a little bit.
It sort of does, but it's also like, wait, what? Why? I mean, I get this is a comedic premise. Some guys are saying we could dominate women's sports. Why?
If it's so irrelevant and nobody watches.
Yes. Part of the joke is that nobody cares. And part of it is that we're going to do something that nobody cares about. I'm gonna say I'm so triggered by this though. I get it's really proper.
Well, it's funny because there's a lot of WNBA players who are like, oh yeah, with all the attention we've been getting on this stuff, you guys are really gonna gear up to be in the seats for this new season. It's like, oh yeah, they don't actually care about your sport.
No,
They're
they
just
don't.
attacking trans
No,
people.
but I'm most offended by how unfunny this trailer is. Now, I haven't seen the movie. Probably won't see the movie. But let's continue on here.
Also, women's sports are growing at a pretty fast clip.
It's ladies basketball, boys. Nobody watches.
Excuse me. Are these seats open?
Never mind.
Getting dunks.
Hilarious.
And tucking trunks.
No, she didn't.
Pause it. I mean, tell me that's not like, is that a like black guys have?
Yeah. I think
This
so.
is such
We
a-
got a black guy here. Let's do a
Honestly,
dick joke. And
this
also,
is-
let's cut right to a Native American.
This is like a parody. This is like if Ken and Ken were to conceive of a movie. This is what it would be. This is what's so sort of fascinating about this. It is so on the nose. That's the problem with conservative comedy. It is the most predictable thing in the world. Like, embarrassingly predictable. Like, I would be embarrassed to write this as a parody because it would be like, that's so low-hanging fruit, dude. Can't you come up with something more sophisticated into parody, what they would do if they were doing this?
That's the biggest I've ever seen on a lady.
I don't care.
Lady Ballers.
One can even be trans age now, which provides Sheelix with a wonderful opportunity to relive all the experiences that she missed out on in school.
Streaming exclusively on Daily Wire Plus December 1st.
I have to say, the most encouraging thing about that is it does look like they spent some money on it.
Yes, I'd say.
And it does not look recoupable. I'm going to make a prediction now. I'm going to go out on a limb. They're not going to be making another movie like this. Unless it's already like, shot and maybe, in the process of editing. I just don't think they're going to get, I would love to see the numbers on this one.
If anyone finds a torrent of it, do put me in touch.
I wonder how much does it cost to go Daily Wire Plus? All right. Let me take one more phone call. Sorry, folks. Calling from a 314 area code. This is the final call of the day. Wait, did we get that person up there?
$12 a month.
Calling from a 314 area code. Are you there?
Yeah, this is Rodney from St. Louis.
Rodney from St. Louis, you're the final caller of the day.
Yeah, do I sound okay?
You do.
All right, cool. I was just a long time, first time. I was just wanting to go over an idea and see what your thoughts would be. You know how with social media and the regular media constantly ghost leftist voices, and essentially you can't get through some of that. What would you think about there being like a national, like a critical media literacy campaign where you go from like city to city, like crowdfunded, and like you leverage your audience to sit there and like grow little, like set little fires proverbially across the country and have like a grassroots thing teaching people how corrupt and bad things really are? Because I'm in the middle of Missouri and people have no clue what's going on. Overall.
What do you say? Are you saying like when you say you do that, like you think that like we should?
Yeah,
do that?
I would be willing to connect, go offline or whatever and talk more in detail. But I'm single, no kids. I can travel through the next election and just do presentations and tell people a story of the America that we were taught that we had in school, not what we found out that there's nobody flying the plane.
Well,
the Democrats are not an opposing party, you know.
I mean, look, I mean, I understand your desire there. I don't know from a, sort of like a practical matter that is the best approach. I mean, on some level, it's like if someone was to, provide $3 million and we could do like a series of like PragerU, things, but online is the place to do it. People watching this show right now. I mean, we just had a caller who said that, they saw this ad for the Daily Wire movie by watching our YouTube stream. It's a matter of resources, and that's the fight. Like we can go around.
Right wing.
I know, but we could go to town, but we're not gonna attract the people that you're talking about.
No, but you also would alert them to like you exist and TYT exists and Democracy Now, because everybody that I speak to has no clue, or if they heard, it's just stupid fear mongering.
But what I'm suggesting to you is the best way, the most efficient way of doing that would be like a massive advertising campaign. And the Daily Wire, they spend $1 million a year on like Facebook ads and probably somewhere around that on YouTube ads. I mean, they have resources to make people aware of their presence. The way that we do it is, we'll do a video about them so that we get into their algorithm. But like, that's the idea that you have, or the point behind it, I think is a good one. I'm just not convinced that like the tactic you're talking about is there. But I mean,
in addition to what you're already doing.
Where are you at in Missouri?
Outside of St. Louis.
I mean, St. Louis, both St. Louis and Columbus have DSAs. I think like those are probably better set, because the fundamental thing, it would be just like, how would we sustain a sort of barn storming tour like that to like smaller towns like that? You kind of just have to join in with, and there probably is Justice Democrats too. I know Cory Bush was a Justice Democrat. Like, try to find those organizations and work within those would be my best advice.
Yeah, and I could say as a practical matter, I mean, the reason why you brought up the fact that you don't have kids, you've got the time, I don't have I would love to do more road shows, just in period. Honestly, I would. But between having to do, make sure that we're doing this show 5 days a week and that I'm getting home in time to make dinner and make sure that my kid is doing his homework, et cetera, et cetera. I can't do that. I'm old, dude. Okay. Well, I guess he went away. He didn't want to hear that. Wait a second. Is this 509? I just want to take this because I need to say thank you. All right. This is the real final call of the day. 509? Is he there? What's going on? Oh, maybe he's already gone. I can't tell what I got on I think he may have hung up already. Oh, yeah, he did. All right. Sorry. I tried to take 509 there. My thing wasn't updating. All right. Let me read some IMs and then we'll go. But I want to say thank you again to Ronald Reagan for yesterday. That was a great birthday present. I imagine Prager must know by now. Some people are saying you should have said it was you at the end.
If I worked for Dennis Prager, I would not tell him. I'd be like, I didn't hear nothing. Start another day.
Yeah, it's not like Prager's on there on like Twitter going like, well, maybe he is. I don't know. But
we needed to have like a new Ron. I don't know what the last name would be, but alter ego for you.
Reach around. What is this? The Dennis Prager show? So many ad reads. Anthony Scalia's Ghost. I think this early finish calls for an extra long fun half, and it did. Romania. Sam, I'm shocked to see you on the show today. I figured you'd be in jail for murdering Dennis Prager yesterday. I'm a trans woman. I'm horrified conservatives have figured out our plans of actively decimating our muscle mass, alter our bodies permanently, remap our brain chemistry, and become the minority du jour for bigots to target so that we can win more recreational sporting events. I can't even lift a 40-pound bag of wood pellets without getting winded, but you would not believe how good I am at women's shot put. For F's sake, Stephen, transition already. This is exactly like the logic that somehow like the conservative brain can't wrap their heads around. That no one is out there going, my first order agenda is I want to win at women's sports.
Yeah.
How can I do this? Or maybe the agenda is I want to win at sports. Tried my hand at men's sports. I can't win. I think I'm going to transition to become a woman and identify as a woman and deal with all this in my life. But I'm going to beat a high school basketball team.
I mean, Enes Kanter, the sort of blowhard former basketball player who does Fox News appearances all the time, he made jokes about that. And it's like, if that was so easy, you would do it. Or someone like you would do it. There would be somebody who would do it. But nobody has, because it's not actually a real problem.
Minnesota. Oh, I read that already. Andy, Australia. Hey, from Perth, Western Australia, MR Crew, would love you to put more heat on Patrick Bet-David and his moronic sidekicks. He has the capital become a major player in the right-wing disinformation and quickly doing so. He's speaking at the upcoming TPUSA event, despite claiming to be independent.
We should look more into Patrick Bet-David.
Yeah, I think that's probably worth doing. Slab. Netanyahu's to Gaza as Cato was to Carthage. Those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Mike from Bavaria. There's an operation that breaks your legs and stretches them so you grow taller. Maybe DeSantis should consider that. Secret sauce for destruction. The reason their comedy sucks so bad is because it clearly comes from a place of anger, not a place of humor. They can't be lighthearted about this whole still acting like it's a real problem. I'll be honest with you. My comedy came from anger. I think. People can argue as to whether it was funny or not. I don't think that's the problem with conservatives. I think the problem with conservatives is that they really do have such a cloistered worldview that they cannot come up with well, there's two things. You can make narrowly tailored comedy, right? Like I've done industrial shows back in the day where we would go in and we're like performing for like Wang, and we didn't do a very good job of it because we would do our comedy when all they really wanted was for us to come up and go like, hello, it's pretty clear that R&D is not returning their Form C-32s, and people just laugh hysterically. Steve Martin had a great joke about this, like where he said like, he did a joke where he thought he was at like a plumber convention. And he's like, ball bearings, these things are, and nobody would laugh. That's what, anybody, you can do that. But the whole, like, they do what they accuse everybody else of doing, which is like to try and just like exclusively push some type of like cultural ideology. They are incapable of having the empathy. I'm not saying sympathy, I'm saying the empathy to do comedy, because to do comedy, you have to understand some type of fundamental experience that people are having, regardless of whether it's like sort of more hackneyed, like, what is it with airplanes? You have to understand, like, you have to have a certain amount of self-consciousness and a consciousness that this is what other people experience when they go on the airplane. Airplane food is bad or whatever it is. They don't have that. And so they just go by these sort of like signposts that you would if you were in, like, you worked at some company, and it would be, I mean, that's the level of the comedy that they're doing. It's just, we have a shared vernacular like they do in R&D. Everybody knows that the R&D people are this way and that the people working in fulfillment are another way. And well, I asked for, a cardboard box and not some type of bubble wrap, that's what their comedy is. It's like the stuff you do at the company picnic. It's just they're so cloistered that they're in a bigger company.
Basically, like flattering yourselves with a shared vocabulary. Like
without a doubt,
this is what we think of, and conservative comedy is like this is what we think of trans people and black people.
Exactly. Jingo Smells production assistant. Not going to lie, Crowder was kind of serving in that clip. Serving what? I'm not sure. Jewish lightning. Between Newsom and DeSantis, each one believes the other is Wario to his Mario, respectively. I don't know what that means.
Wario is like the bizarro Mario that's bad.
Gotta be Nick. Sam, Newsom has said that exact thing. Yeah, all right, there you go. I mean, it's pretty, he's smart. It's not a hard thing to come out. Of course, you invite them to debate, and they'll be like, why would you do this? Art Vandalay. It's funny how Sam thinks of large sums of money exclusively in terms of Subaru Outbacks. It's true. Immediately undercut my Subaru bit with a passionate and thorough explanation of the problems working people are facing in the housing market. However, I knew he could explain it just as well in terms of Subarus if he felt like it. Left his best. That's all. That's the way I measure everything. When am I going to have to replace my Subaru Outback? That's basically it. Sean from Cali. Sam, just ordered a Hello Tushy the night before last, and when I did it, it took me to a page when I asked if I wanted a second bidet. I did not want it nor need it, so I went to continue to check out, and they added anyway. No confirmation, no option to remove. They just double charged me. I emailed them immediately to tell them of the error, and they told me there was nothing they can do. I feel like I got scammed. What? That's crazy. That's strange. We'll look into that. I've never heard of anything like that. I don't even know if that's crazy. Andrew in Olympia. Well, guess what? We're not going to let theater happen. Ignore that first message, please. I didn't have my glasses on. All right. 3 more. Andrew K. Daily Wire will soon remake Soul Man. Oh yeah, that is that seems so sort of like surprising they haven't. Freedom Poutine. Who still says triggered? And the final I am of the day. Chicago Steve. The only possible way that movie is funny is if you accept the absurdity of the premise. The premise being a bunch of men getting into women's sports. But if that is absurd, then their entire right-wing freakout about men playing women's sports must also be absurd. To go with a sports metaphor just seems like a bit of an own goal. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Their claim is people are going to do this, and then but they think that idea is absurd. And if it's absurd, then why are they so worried about it happening?
Nobody's actually done it.
Interesting point. All right. That's it for today, folks. Emma will be here tomorrow. Bye-bye.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the lie bar. But finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I get somewhere the choice is made, for the option where you don't get paid.